Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is our monthly and artist journey series where we talk to local organizations and artists. And I am on the road again, 2 months in a row, some kind of record. I am in downtown Green Bay at the Sage location. What is the address? 225 Washington?
North Washington.
North Washington. I found the entrance. It's not as hard as it may seem. It's very easy. Parking was great, and this is a very cool space. So I'm here talking with Sage and their board members tonight. I'm going to flip this camera around so you can see them, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. It'll be fine. Just pretend like we're all hanging out. For those of you in virtual land, please unmute and ask questions along the way or drop them in the chat. Myself and Tanya from the Artisan Center are here. We're going to monitor the chat and make sure all your questions get answered. And with that, I'm going to turn the camera around. Let's see. I fixed the mirroring issue, so now they're showing up accurately. Oh, okay, camera's on you guys. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, so I'm Stacey Von Busch. I am the president of Sage. Next.
My name is Leah Norm, and I'm a board member. I'm Melissa Bortz, and I'm a board member also. We don't really have like strict titles, I guess.
No, we don't.
It's okay.
You know, we never adhered to that. Or like, if you were to ever go to like a board meeting that we've had over the years, it's just been like, well, hey, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna chat, and we're gonna talk about things, and then, you know, we ask for votes and all of that jazz. But there's never like a, I second the notion. You know.
You guys are small.
You're pretty casual.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about Sage. Where do you want to start? History? How it started?
Well,
what you do?
So all three of us are, you know, since day one, right? Or like within a few months of day one. Leah, we were just talking about this. So in 2017, myself along with Sharon Day of Ginger and Waldo and Dana Tingley of Issue Tingley Soap Company now, I believe, yes, sat down at Kavarna and we're like, let's just create this little group. We just wanted to have people to talk to. At the time, it was much simpler. It was, what are good shows? Where do I go to get my state sales tax ID? Where do I go for this supply? How can I do this locally? Who has this? Who has that? You know, maybe there was a grumble here and there. But we were all working from home as makers. We were legitimate businesses that were trying to make legitimate, you know, sizable income from what we were doing. And so we took it from there. And the three of us, Dana came up with the acronym, and Sharon came up with the logo, and I was just there.
What's the acronym stand for?
Share, accept, grow, and encourage. And it's kind of fun because over the years, some of us have adapted different different words depending on the time of year or what have you. But yeah, and so then Dana, Sharon, and myself started reaching out. We formed a Facebook group. That group on Facebook is the original group from clear back in 2017. And I can remember thinking, oh, if we get 50 people in here, we're doing good. You know, now I believe there's over 500. And so then you had to have come along within the second or third meeting. Yeah, we were still meeting at Kavarna. And then we thought we'd be super hip and meet at various places around town. And that just actually was much more of a fiasco than what it was worth. And truthfully, that first year especially, we'd have meetings where only 2 people would show up. We would have meetings where 8 people would show up. You know, it was so hit or miss. And then spring of 2018, we started talking about using what was the Leap Room at Kavarna, which now is Spark House Vintage. And so we went there, decided that we were going to do just a handful of pop-up shops during the Broadway Farmers Market on Wednesday. And that's where you came in, right?
Yeah, later.
Yeah, like a whole.
It was a D-Stash sale, and I really wanted this.
That's right.
Yeah, the form or whatever.
Yeah, and that was like Denise Larson's form, right?
I don't know, was Denise or was it
Or
Sharon's? Yeah,
Who knows?
but like I saw about the meetings, but I was a little afraid to like join. Please don't just come. I gotta join. It's just like, oh, they're not gonna like me. I'm so weird. But no, we will like you.
We were all weird. We were all weird together. And
Wait, so you showed up to shop?
Yeah.
I think somehow you
Yeah.
ended up on
And then
Yeah.
I found out we were neighbors.
Yeah, okay.
So then
Yeah.
I was like, oh, darn it, I have to join.
Yeah, yep.
And then we had the 1-year photo shoot, which I was like,
Oh my God,
do you
that's
want
right.
me to participate?
What's the smash cake? So another one of our board members, Betsy, we said we were going to be super corny about it and celebrate our 1-year anniversary. And it was our first birthday. And so we all got together at a photographer's studio with a smash cake and took pictures, and then we were all eating. And oh my gosh, I almost forgot about that. But there's a picture of myself and Betsy, and I shouldn't admit this about Betsy, but she was like really trying not to eat sweets at the time, the irony being that she owns Better at Bake Shop. So there's a photo that it's her and me, and we're like on our hands and knees, just like face first into this cake. But Betsy refused to eat any of it, so she's literally just smashing her face into the cake. And
She's not even here to talk
no,
about
no,
We're
no.
gonna say whatever we want.
Yeah.
Betsy, if you're watching this.
Yeah, sorry about that. So that was Betsy. Yeah, but then we just started doing more stuff like that. And then in the late fall of 2018, it was actually my daughter Octavia who was selling cat toys to raise money for Safe Haven, which got us involved with Safe Haven and the individuals over there. That then became an invitation to move into what was going to be the eclectic market and help source makers to fill that shop. And I don't want to talk too much about that situation, but so in November of 2018, we moved into the eclectic market, and the real great thing about that was that established a permanent space for us, like a place where you could find us, even if there were disagreements along the way as to how the business was happening. And then what I did in order to really try to fill that space was I got on Etsy and I searched for like Green Bay makers, and I would message them, and everybody thought I was crazy, like good luck with that, you know, kind of attitude. But we did find a handful of folks. I can, like Deanna, I can remember because she was helping Octavia with the cat toy stuff, and we just grew from there. And that's where we really started to have a member base. In summer 2018, when that fell through, was that, no, it must have been 2019, sorry. We moved in there in 2018. In 2019, we moved in temporarily to the Premiere over there on Broadway. And that's when we started really exploded, because then also in 2019, we filed for our 501c3, because it was at the Eclectic Market that we hosted our first community event. And I always say that it was called DIY on the Fly. And remember, you came up with that. It's called DIY on the Fly. And it was after a D-stash sale. I had said, if anybody doesn't want to take their supplies back home, we'll keep them. And we did. We kept them in the back. And then we just set some art supplies out. And folks had an opportunity to just create. And I sat down next to somebody, and she had a rock, a paintbrush, and just a little tube of acrylic paint. And she said, I have no idea where to start. And that's where, for me, I was like, I have, you know, you could set anything in front of me. You could set a pencil and a piece of paper, and I would at least doodle on it, you know. And so it's like, not all people think creatively, and there actually is something different to the way that we operate, and how can we encourage folks to activate that part of their brain, essentially. So then when we moved into the Premiere, we started Creative Community. That was in November of 2019. We had a ribbon cutting ceremony and everything, a big old fundraiser event. And in between all of that, we were participating like in the Ignite markets with On Broadway. And then we were not in the Premiere long. We went into storage for a bit. Then in 2020, right as COVID was hitting, we took the move into a space over there on Main and Webster, right? Webster and Main, pretty much. And we called it Alchemy, and that was a co-op space. Again, didn't work out. And then we went to storage again, and we waited. One of the really big things about this whole process of trying to find a home was finding all the things that didn't work. And it's okay to be able to be like, that didn't work and that didn't work. This did work, you know, but to have that balance, to know what to go after, and then to not be in a rush. Like, it sucked being in storage, I'm not gonna lie. But I think we would all agree it would suck even more to be a volunteer organization trying to figure out where our rent money was gonna come from.
I think that's a really great perspective. You know?
Yeah, and I think for all that we do, I think people believe that there's somebody behind this organization getting paid. And I am here to attest that that is 100% false. And, you know, not to deter away from sharing our history, but when we discuss a shoestring budget and when we discuss how to operate in such a manner, like, you're proud of it, but at the same time, you're like, well, this shouldn't be. Right? You're proud of the fact that you're able to accomplish so much with so little, but at the same time, it's kind of like you're banging your head against the wall going, man, I really want to make a difference in this community. Why aren't the dollars rolling in so that we can do that?
For sure. Okay, so for our audience, let's talk about everything you do. So let's paint that picture. Because everybody here might not know, and then everybody watching the recording may not know. So let me
take this one too. I don't want to be the okay. So you can go to our website. Yeah.
Just like summarize some of the things you've done that you're really excited
It's
about.
on our website. If anybody wants a little bit more in detail, as well as the budget associated with the things that I'm going to talk about. So we transitioned creative community when we moved into this location in November 2021 into simply what we call Open Studio. And even the photo for the event on Facebook just says whatever, just come hang out. And that brought more people. I don't know if it was because creative community was like, well, what is it exactly? But Open Studio, people understood, and the environment's no different. We host that once a month. And that's just simply that folks that have donated art supplies, again, going all the way back to 2018, folks that have donated art supplies to us, we set on the shelves. Some of the things, if they're really specific, we will source out to artists that we know could use them. Canvases are a really popular art supply. Those go fast. Picture frames were for a while as well. Paint, what else? But anyway, we were doing our monthly meetings. We did that for years. And then there was a Facebook fiasco, which just kind of, you know, not necessarily prevented that, but people also weren't showing up. We went pre-COVID to having meetings with 30, 40, 50 people to post-COVID being lucky to have 3. And we did a lot of them virtual, and then it was like, you know, I think we finally settled into a pattern of this is what we do. And we don't need to have these meetings and these updates. And then it's like, hey, we're in here every 3rd Tuesday of the month with Open Studio. Hey, you know, every quarter we host a one-night only event, which is another thing that we do. So the first year, last year was the first year that we started what we call a one-night only exhibits. And they're quarterly events. We do not identify as an art gallery. Again, we're volunteer. We don't have regular hours of operation. Everybody else has got their own lives. Nobody's got time for that. And then so you had March, June, September, and December. And the first year we assigned them to board members to come on curating it. And it was just literally art from everybody's individual perspectives. And it was really met with success. Like, they only grew as the quarters went on. And so this year we opened it up and invited artists to apply to curate, which the first one in March is curated by Shel Diedrich, and it's the Fierce Feminine. I was like, the feminine what? And, you know, just to give you an idea of how much that has grown for us as an organization, we shared the call for art on Instagram, and it got like over 1,200 views in 24 hours. And it was like, what did, like, what, you know, but to speak to that, you know, Shel is in charge of that exhibit from start to finish, from the call to, you know, the curation and the setup. She's the jury for it. There's no charge to participate in any of these. We don't take a commission on the artwork that's up here. And that's that artist advocacy platform. You know, I think we talk about it pretty regularly. We will not build this organization on the backs of the artists that we're meant to support. And so everything that we bring to the community is at no cost because we're going to find another way to fund it. And so Open Studio, one night only event. This year, I think towards the end of last year, it was kind of like, hey, we've got this space. We did earn a Main Street Bounce Back grant in order to get us really in here, but we signed the 3-year lease knowing that we had the dollars to fund it, whether it was through the Toy Makers fundraiser or donations here and there, just to clarify. So the space is essentially lease is paid for. So now it's like, okay, we're paying for this. How do we make more use of this? And last year in October, we, a group from Napoli's Lounge hosted Coming Out, Coming Together. And that was the first opportunity we really got to see where handing another individual a set of keys was exactly what we needed to do in order to make better use of this space. So this year, it's just literally been like, hey, you know, somebody will contact us. Can I do this? Hey, can I do that? Yep, sure. Yep, sure. You know, I mean, and there are, of course, our parameters. It has to be creative. But from an organization standpoint, we're able to do so much more and so many different things because it's not just 5 heads on a board deciding what those things are. It's literally any artist that says, hey, I want to give this a go, or I want to give this a try. And you know, again, from an organizational standpoint, when you're advocating for the artist, there's always like so much with, you know, is this at the expense of the artist or is this at the benefit of the artist? And where is that? Where does that happen? So when you look at one night only, okay, so somebody could come, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate for our own organization and say, well, you know, you should be paying that artist to curate that show because it's to benefit to your organization, because it brings your organization visibility and it brings something into your space and it's better than dead space, and et cetera, et cetera. So for us as an organization, then it's our job to say, oh, okay, but the benefit and the experience for this artist and something that they don't normally have an opportunity to produce, we're affording them. We're covering the cost of the space. We're covering, you know, the lighting. We're covering the marketing. We're helping them with the advertising. We're making sure that wherever any of us are, that event is being promoted so that it does flip into an advocacy space, right? And so that's a lot of what you're going to see from us this year. The only consistency is, you know, the one night onlys, the open studios. We do peer-to-peer mentorship. That really works well in the open studios environment. And then everything else that's coming out of this space. I mean, holy smokes, between tonight and now 25th, we have Warm Up to the Mic, which is a new quarterly event that we're launching for podcast hosts. What that is we invite a podcast host to come in. We have podcast equipment donated by another artist. They come in, they record live their normal podcast content, and then the second hour is open to anybody that is at the event that would want to contribute to the conversation. And that came about in December during the Artist Resistance exhibit, which I feel like maybe we should have known that this was going to happen with an Artist Resistance exhibit. When you have artists using art for social justice, you're going to get really deep, healthy, meaty conversation. That's exactly what did happen. And we're all in this room that we're in right now. And we're all sharing our personal stories and our personal experiences, not necessarily as it relates to art. Somebody is talking about affordable housing, somebody's talking about culture and racism, and you know, and it's just all in this room, and we're like, oh, you know, I mean, we all came away from that, you know, feeling like different people, feeling moved, feeling called to action. And so it was like, well, what if we provided that environment for open conversation? And that's where Warm Up to the Mic came from. And the addition of Warm Up to the Mic is that we're also serving soup, hence Warm Up to the Mic. So that was kind of clever, you know, but we really want, you know, when anything, whether it's visual art or written word or whatever, it's perspective, right? And so if we open up an event to varying perspectives, we get these, you know, new and potentially unthought of points of view. And so that's February 25th. Then we roll into Tanya's solo exhibit. And I think, Tanya too, not to like talk about you when you're in the room, but it's like, hey, what do you think about, hey, what do you think about, I'm going to launch this zine. Can I use Sage to host this event? And it's like, my goodness, of course you can. And then now you get this unique experience that Green Bay doesn't have a flex space for artists. Green Bay has spaces that allow artists to exhibit and have solo shows that come at a cost to the artist. And so it was like more of this, like more. How do we get more of this? How do we keep this going? And now we're learning more about the zine scene in general, and an invitation for written word. And we're going, we're learning more from musicians and going, well, how can we fill that gap? Hey, musicians, like, by the way, if there's a musician out there that wants to host a monthly support group in the studio, that's what we're here for. Because when we talk about events and what this organization does, we're talking about an entire ecosystem of creativity. It's not just visual art. It's not just, performance art, and it's everything. And it's a collective. And when we can serve as a space where folks can learn and to a certain point have the same frame of mind when it comes to how much should I be charging? How, what does a good opportunity look like? How much, should I price my piece at? How much should I be paying myself an hour? If somewhere in all of this conversation we begin to develop a collective understanding of at least a baseline, right? I mean, you Google how much does a plumber make, and you're going to get a range, right? Mm-hmm. You Google how much does an artist make, and they go, we don't pay for hobbies, and because it's so huge. And so I think that's with everything that we're doing right now is opportunity.
Okay, I want to circle back.
Sorry.
It's okay. No. For those of you who are live with us tonight, can you tell everybody what today is? I know that for the recording,
yes.
But
so today's Give Big Green Bay, and we're one of 45 nonprofits chosen to participate in the event. It's 24 hours of giving. It's all online. So right now we have an open house. Like, you can come into our studio right now till 10 o'clock tonight. Learn about what we do as an organization, who we are, check out the space. We're kind of a unique little space when it comes to the layout of the room. We have a virtual artist station. We've had that for a while now, but that's an opportunity. If you want to watch a YouTube tutorial and be actually making, you can do that here. If you want to record a virtual tutorial, you can do that here. I mean, basically anything.
I told Xavier when I walked in, I felt like we're in a real city.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's there. The podcast equipment now is here.
Printer.
The printer is here. We still got to figure that out.
Okay.
But we have a really nice printer.
Nice.
So we did 100 Women Who Care, which is literally what it sounds like. It's 100 women who get together and they listen to 3 nonprofits. And the nonprofits present like how they would use the money if they were to win said money. And at the time, we had presented a printer, a computer, a virtual artist station, some of the things like, when we do the one night only events, we do food and refreshments and music and, go towards that. And we didn't win, but the result of the most recent presentation that we gave with them was around $1,500 in donations, to which we said, okay, we're going to go and we're going to buy this printer. And
by printer, do you mean like desktop printer? Do you mean photo printer?
Yeah, so it's a Epson EcoTank. It's the good one.
Do prints of their art, for example?
Yeah, we can print up to 13 by 19. You can download an app onto your phone to where you can just, do straight to the printer. Like I said, I'm not technologically advanced like that. And so I will admit that it's been a lot of troubleshooting. We've got it to work a couple of times. And I actually have a much simpler version of the same printer at home, and it works really, really well. So,
So let's clarify, anybody who's watching, any creative artist-ish person in the area can be a part of Sage, can
oh
join
yeah,
or reach out.
100%. Yeah.
What's the best way to reach out and get involved?
So I would say go through our website. There's a contact us form. That goes to our email address. You know, we have Facebook and we have Instagram. To be frank, like I would really like to see our organization get a little bit further away from social media. Just because not only my own fiasco with losing my Facebook and not being able to do what I used to be able to do, but just it takes up so much time. It takes up so much time, and we could be doing much better things. And you know, Leah and I sat down on Sunday and you know, scheduled out everything that you're seeing on Get Big right now. And but it was just kind of like I have no other way to put it.
Your website is createwithsage.
Createwithsage.org.
I thought I had it
Yeah.
memorized right. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure I didn't misspeak.
Yeah, and if you're on Facebook today and tomorrow, you're gonna see what we focused for that campaign was not only testimonials from individuals that have participated in what we do, but then you're also gonna see organizations that we're working with this year. We started, or we're test piloting a program called Creatively Engaged Community. And what that is actually formally training artists to go in as mentors into service-oriented nonprofit organizations, not to teach, but to basically, like I said, mentor, whatever word you want to use, inspire, you know, encourage individuals to create art that shares their story. It's very individualized to the organization that we're going into. But like, for example, we go into Casa Alba Melanie in April, and that's where we will train our first community engaged artist. Ileana Flores works for Casa Alba Melanie already. We were funded with $5,000 from the Green Bay Community Foundation to develop this formal training. I will be transparent when I say we actually requested $20,000 to execute the formal training. To break that down a little bit, $10,000 of it was to do written and digital video content for training, because what we're doing is essentially trauma-informed care. We're not just going to toss an artist into an organization and say help somebody make art. But so we got the money, or $5,000 to do the digital and the written content, and then you know, but nobody's getting paid to actually write the content as of right now, or sit and do the video. That was literally to cover the graphic designer and the videographer. So that the other $10,000 of the 20 that we requested was to actually train artists and execute them in 6 nonprofits within the community, because it was kind of like, well, what's the point of making this training if we can't then train individuals to prove that it works and put them out there in the community. So it's a big part of where, like, if we have a decent chunk of funding come in, Aspiro, we're working with them starting this summer. As mentioned, Casa Alba Melanie, Return to Golden House in March. Golden House was one of our test organizations that we worked with, along with St. John's and Safe Shelter. What else are we doing? Oneida Arts is coming in November and doing a Native American History Month exhibit. So it's just literally a matter of reaching out and bringing organizations together for the sake of the arts.
You guys touch a lot of different people.
Yeah.
We are closing in on about a half hour left, so I would love to hear a little bit more about the people that make up Sage and how you are all artists. Maybe a little bit about what you do as artists.
Well, I'm a potter, and I enjoy making different wheel thrown items and hand-built items, and then I also do some painting for fun, and right now I have a piece of the devil, so I'm really excited about that painting.
Is that part of the art colony exhibit?
It is part of the art colony exhibit.
That's awesome. I heard the jury cut out a lot of pieces, so cool that you made it in.
Yeah.
Congratulations are in order.
Thank you.
How long have you been an artist?
For a long time. Yeah, I've only been a potter for about 5 years, but I think that is my main medium.
What about you, Melissa?
Oh, I like to describe myself as a multi-passionate creative. I dabble in a lot of things. I'm more of a fiber artist. I spin, so I make yarn, and I do embroidery stuff, and like a lot of it's mixed media. I'll paint and then I'll embroider on a piece, and right now that's kind of more for just to, I don't know, like keep me alive, you know, like just to be creative and that sort of thing. But like as an income, I'm a nail artist, so I do nails and I paint tiny pictures of them.
Okay, so I can really feel like Stacey's passion, but what keeps you guys engaged with Sage? Like, why are you passionate about what you do with Sage? I'm gonna have really hard question. Stacey, stop talking, so now it's my turn.
Just helping or just seeing like other artists progress and learn new things. Just interacting with other artists is really inspiring for your own stuff, whether you're selling it or entering it into a gallery or that sort of thing. Just being allowed to be creative, just making art for art's sake, you know, getting help. And yeah, if you have like more, if you need,
Community? That's what
yeah,
I'm hearing. If I had to summarize what you're saying,
Right.
having that like community of people
And
around
I think
you.
that's a really big deal.
Yeah, especially post-pandemic.
I think, yeah, I think that's just a really, you know, it's not about the events, it's not about the art, it's about feeling that like somebody's got your back. And like, if you want to make something or if you want to do something, like, we operate a really honest environment, I think, especially amongst like the folks on the board and the people in this room. Kind of like, you know, we're not going to cheerlead just for the sake of cheerleading. We're going to cheerlead because we can see that you would be successful at it.
For sure. I think especially doing these artist journeys and meeting with artists every month for the past couple of years, I hear oftentimes that, you know, art can be really lonely, or people feel like they're really siloed and they're like working in their basements and they haven't come up for air in a long time, or they don't know who's in this area making art alongside them because everybody's doing it siloed. Green Bay hasn't had a whole lot of connection.
Well, and I mean, 100%, that's why this organization exists.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you know, I mean, I moved here and I knew nobody, and it was like, I would like to know somebody, you know, but then it was like every conversation was happening like on Facebook Messenger, and it was kind of like, you know, maybe it'd be nice if we could get together and talk about this or what have you. And I think what's really great too, you know, again, Betsy's not here, but you know, the reason why we have her on the board is like, man, that girl will give you a different perspective that you never thought of before. You know, and then, you know, I mean, they can attest to it. You know, she'll just spit something out and be like, I never thought of it. You know, and it's just different. But that's what kind of every conversation ends up being. Or somebody will say like, well, what if you did it this way? And I think, you know, sorry to interrupt you, Leah, as far as why you're back.
We can circle back.
Yeah, we'll come back to you. But I think it's worth emphasizing, you can't be a part of an organization like Sage unless you remove your ego. You gotta let that ego go, and you gotta be willing to say, the person that's talking to me has my best interests in mind, or the person that's talking to me sees something in a different way than I do, but that's not wrong, or they're not criticizing me, or I'm not being critiqued, or, you know, what have you. And again, I think that's a really big emphasis on why we've operated such an honest space and a safe space.
Mm-hmm. I see, now we can go to Leah.
We were talking about why we like being part of Sage, and I like being part of Sage is because everybody belongs. It doesn't matter if you've shown at the biggest museums in the area. You could be someone who just does farmer markets, or someone who just does things out of Etsy, you know, in your own house. So it doesn't matter how big or small you are. You fit. You belong.
You know, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because I can remember when we first started, it's like, how do we get the popular artists? How do we get, how do we get the folks that have been around making art in the Green Bay area? Like, I think of like Heather Peterman.
Yeah.
I always say the OG artist.
Yeah. How do I get, or Virginia Jansen, or like, Naomi Mose, like, I'm just gonna throw some names out there, and like, Naomi, it's interesting, I was at a New Art Space exhibit or show with her in December, and she came up to me and said, I'm so excited to meet you. And I'm like, well, this is completely backwards. Yeah. I'm like, well, thank you, but like, I actually thought it was the other way around. Like, I felt like the underdog in the room, and so I think there's also kind of a bit of that misnomer too, like, maybe they're, I don't mean to discredit tenured artists, but maybe there is no hierarchy. Maybe there's just different.
For sure. And I also think it's always been a little cliquey. I'll absolutely have a way of like, how do you break into this group? And like,
yeah,
I feel like Sage is very welcoming to everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's the coolest part.
Yeah, and people come and go.
Yeah.
We've always been that way.
Ebb and flow.
And we've never had, like, when you talk about, there's never been a membership fee. And, people are like, well, that'd be a way for you to make money. That'd be a way for the organization to have some dollars to work with. But, in the scope of things, the dollars would be so minimal as compared to the responsibility that I would feel and the pressure that we would feel as a board to make sure you were getting value from what you invested in.
Plus, it's making money off the artist.
Yeah, it's
and that's
not
and
generating
yeah,
a living for artists.
yeah. No, I mean, I can't emphasize enough. I think we've been immensely successful in approaching, literally everything that we do from the perspective of how is this benefiting the artist? And how is this going to help them? And then, bringing that creativity into it of, okay, well, what kind of money is this going to cost? Oh, we can't do it, or what have you. And then also, I think especially in 2019 when we first became a nonprofit, the FOMO and letting that go. And
you don't have to be involved in everything.
We don't have to be everything everywhere. And it's not about not being a team player or not being, community minded. It's literally being realistic, having the mental and physical health of people in mind. And, Sage has greatly transitioned through the pandemic. Like I said, we had 30, 40, 50 people in meetings. And if we needed people to participate in something, it wasn't challenging. These days, I would tell you that if somebody said, can you get 20 Sage members to be a part of blah, 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 I would probably tell you no.
It's different.
It's just different.
Okay, so I've had a question kind of lingering in the back of my head. It's way off topic, but you kind of touched on it just there for a moment. So I'm sitting here thinking about you guys and what I know about you, and you're all artists. You all have children, and you all run this organization. How do you balance it all? How do you keep making art? How do you give to this organization? How do you take care of your personal lives? Like, how do you do it all? I think it's the artists that watch this, and I try to always put myself in that mindset of like, I want to do it all, but how in the world do you do it all? You don't? Is that what you're? Is that the?
Oh no, I'm waiting for one of them to answer.
Yeah. You take the time, you make it. Yeah. This year, so for nails, it's usually every 3 weeks people get their nails redone. So I took one of my 3-week blocks. So every 3 weeks, I took a day off. So Thursday is art day. So I make time. I also have a very supportive partner that helps with the children and stuff. And mine are a little bit older. They can be a little more responsible. So it was a little more difficult in the beginning, especially I was a stay-at-home mom. And so then with the work but I get to create at work. So it's
true. Yeah.
It's really fun that way. So I feel like it's not always work.
In the very beginning, this is a total sidebar, in the very beginning, Melissa brought her boys to set up at a show at the Leap Room, and I got pictures of them wearing the hair bows. Do you remember that?
I have a teenager and almost huge.
He won't be watching. They won't be watching. Yeah.
And they can participate.
Yeah.
I think that's something that both of you have done, and Betsy's done this as well, that your kids were engaged in a lot of the stuff. Yeah. And Jewel, he's an artist.
Yes, my oldest is at UW-Madison getting his BFA.
The first time I met him was at an art garage saw workshop when I was working there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he was probably like, I mean, he's always been tall, but.
He's now listed in the artist directory.
Yes,
Whoa,
yes,
that's
yes.
awesome.
He's always done art. I've
Yeah.
always pushed it on him, and I didn't, after a while, really have to push. I just bought him all the stuff and said, here you go.
Turn him loose.
Exactly.
And then every time you attend an event, John and John August are there.
Yes, yes. And I also have, my youngest is a nonverbal, severely autistic child who comes along and he enjoys the art, and some events go smoother than others. But he's not so much into doing art. He's more into looking at the art.
And my girls have been with me. I mean,
I'm surprised they aren't.
I mean, I used to
I thought they
joke.
were bored, but.
Yeah, I used to joke when I would make meetings, you know, especially in like 2019, for example. I would be like, well, I'm gonna have an entourage with me, just so you know, I'm gonna have an entourage.
That's the first thing you said to me.
Yeah, and I always do. And sometimes they're little turds and sometimes they're great, you know, and it's just, you just do it. You know, I think that's just with parenting in general anyway, is like, you just do it. Like, it's not like parenting isn't optional. You make it work. And I'm really conscious of folks that are less fortunate. But I think if we are to, as artists and even just as individuals, you know, carry a self-awareness of what we need in order to feel fulfilled. If it's art, if it's creativity, you find a way to advocate for yourself. And that can be the simplest of things, whether it's 30 minutes creating or, you know, participating in an event or what have you. And I think as an organization too, we've always been incredibly accommodating. You know, I used to feel guilty when, you know, I bring my 3 kids along or what have you, and pretty soon I'm just like, well, this is just what we're doing. Bring your kids too. Here are the Sage kids. Here's the next generation, everybody, you know, and
So Stacey, do you remember that promotional video from 2019 where there's a clip of one of your twins that actually made the final cut of the promotional video, and it's you going, shh.
yeah. Oh, but I mean, they have so much fun with
And
it.
yeah, I thought it was a great leave-in for that, because that is very much a part of
It's just
Sage,
authentic.
is that, you know, the families are gonna be there
Yeah.
in some way, somehow,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and I think that's been a big part of our organization as a whole period, you know, with, you know,
Holistic person.
yeah, everything, whether it's that, you know, an artist can't afford to properly frame their piece, but it's a beautiful piece, bring it in, we'll help you frame it. You know, we're trying to break down, if not eliminate, those barriers that keep people from creating, or whether it's, you know, a social issue or, you know, a lifestyle issue or what have you. Like, again, lower your ego and come in and say, I'm advocating for myself and I want to do this. And I don't mean ego in a negative fashion. Please don't misunderstand. You know, like, lower your pride, you know, whatever it is. I mean, we all have our moments where it's like, I don't want to admit that I need help, or I don't want to admit that I could benefit. I can do this on my own. You know, that's what I mean by ego. I'm not saying that everybody out there is a jerk. You know?
If I had to summarize what I'm hearing prioritize yourself and your creative
Yeah.
needs. And then I'm also hearing like boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
set aside the time you need for
Mm-hmm.
the things you need to continue to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple comments that have come in. Jan said that Sage exists because members give up their time and talent.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kiva Freeman says, hey, Sage from Steve.
Yeah, you know, and it's always been, I think, you know, when you talk about members giving up their time and talents, like, you know, the Toy Makers fundraiser, perfect example. It's kind of like,
Let's summarize what that is first.
so the Toy Makers fundraiser, I make stuffed animals out of white t-shirts. So like, I literally go to the Dig and Save, I purchase white t-shirts on Sundays when it's 50 cents a pound. Yeah, there's a couple over there, I think. And then we hand them over. Yeah, that's Heather's, yeah. And then we hand them over to artists to do what we say, make their mark. And every year, it's gotten more and more and more. And the first year, I made 86 stuffed animals, and that was crazy. because I thought, you know, in the back of my head, it was like, okay, we're gonna raise money for Sage as an organization, but way back when we were doing the pop-up shops in the leaf room, we called them pop-up and platforms because we asked every artist who was in there to showcase a nonprofit whose, you know, mission they believed in. So we had like a clean water, we had Kingdom Animalia, you know, just different organizations. So it's kind of like that same concept of, okay, now our organization can raise money for these organizations too, and we all work together, one big happy family. And that didn't happen, just to be totally transparent. Some organizations were on board with it, some organizations didn't share it once, and so it is what it is. But so the second and the third year, we broke it down, we only did 30. And then those go on exhibit at the Neville Public Museum for a month, and then they're auctioned off online. So we're able to reach a nationwide audience for fundraising purposes. This year we topped out at right at $5,000 by the time we did a Hinterland event as well. But it's like, oh, we're gonna ask these artists to give up this time to, you know, make these stuffed animals that raises money for our organization, and it's less, but they want to do it. And sometimes, you know, like my head has to wrap around, people want to give.
But you are giving artists something for that, especially now in years 2 and 3, because we make a piece of art and it gets to go on exhibit at the Neville Public Museum.
Yeah.
So you are giving something to the artists.
And they're mostly giving up their time. Obviously, there's some materials involved,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's a resource they can give.
And so every stuffed animal has an artist, their name, a bio, a QR code that links to whatever social media they wanted to share. And yeah, it goes over really great. And we end up, you know, it's a literally one of a kind piece of art from whatever artist you get something from. And because I really don't see them, you know, calling me up for a stuffed animal in May, you know. So, but it's been a great little fundraiser. And, you know, every year I'm like, this is going to be the last year, I'm not going to do it anymore. And yes, we are signed up for year 4. So like, I should probably get started. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we have less than 15 minutes to go. So anybody joining us virtually, if you have questions, feel free to unmute or drop them in the chat. If there's anything you want to know about SAFE that we haven't covered. For you 3 in front of me, is there anything we haven't talked about? Like what's next? We kind of talked about that. Oh, the camera?
No.
Oh. Tanya wants to remain off camera next to me, and she's got questions.
I actually, because just from my experience with the organization, I know this, but I think it's really important that you guys talk about this, to the group watching. Talk about how Sage executes inclusivity. Like, talk about the ways you do that and what that means to the organization.
This is why I want to ask the tough question.
Because I think that, honestly, like, I think that one of the most important things that Sage does is to execute inclusivity well. And I know it's not always like something that you write a script for. Sometimes it just happens very naturally in the group. But I think it's something we should share and talk about.
So from my perspective, I think there is a lot of natural.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is natural. There's a compassion element to anybody who chooses to participate in what we do. There's, you know, there's also that social justice element.
Yes, that's what always resonates with me is you guys are always trying to do what's the most just thing for that artist in front of you or that, you know, person in front of you.
And I think, you know, from my perspective, that's because, like, you know, I don't mean to sound elementary, but treat others the way you would want to be treated. And so when I'm going through a life experience that I feel is unjust or what have you, and I'm like, oh, shit, I want to make sure that that's not happening to somebody else. Whether it's a voice is heard, a culture is represented, a demographic is showcased, you know, whatever. And I think it really boils down to the human experience of, I would never want someone else to deny me the opportunity to be exactly who I want to be. And from an artistic standpoint, I think in that case, art brings a voice. I don't think it's necessarily a matter of, you know, we're just looking to be there for people, whatever that looks like from a creative standpoint. You know, we're looking to adjust our way of thinking or our way of operating to accommodate if a need arises or as a need arises. I think you see that with creatively engaged community in the sense of, you know, going into a Spiro this summer to help their clients make art. And so I reach out to Leah based on Leah's personal experience with her son. And I say, Leah, you know, I want you to start coming to these meetings because that's an experience that I don't have. And, you know, even just in talking to her on Sunday, she's like, well, we do this thing where it's your turn, my turn. And I'm like, you know, it doesn't sound like anything, you know, my brain, but I never would have thought of that. You know, we're sitting there, we're talking about artists collaborating with clients, and then she says, your turn, my turn, and I'm like, that's great. So we're going, you know, we're going back and forth. And, you know, that, you know, the inclusivity piece, again, from being a parent, from caring about individuals that are from different backgrounds. You know, how can I, you know, invite EJ to be a board member of our organization and not actively advocate for everything that they stand for?
But I think, so you just used the word invite. So I feel like as a group, Sage does more than invite, because there are a lot of organizations, nonprofit or otherwise, that say, oh, sure, everyone's welcome here. And they write it in a document and they say that they're inclusive. You actually, as a group, like, you take the time to learn why that group is different and what they need to be supported in their community. And I think that that's what's different. You're not just saying, oh yeah, you're included.
They're like
walk yourself here. It's, oh, you're included here. Let me show you the path, or what is your path, or whatever it is, you know.
Well, it's something as simple as we're in downtown Green Bay right now because we knew we were going to be close to bus lines, or walking, or school, or whatever. It's just thinking like that, and thinking how can we be accommodating. And I
like mindset that's you're so outward focused. I think that's the point I'm hearing from you talking, and like the whole night is that you're talking about all these other nonprofits you work with and all these organizations you work with and how you serve all these other people. And that's what's helping Sage grow and flourish. But you're not just like strangle holding onto your organization trying to force it to grow.
No.
It's that outward.
And I will say too, a lot of what helps with that is that we're not focused on how can we make money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, how can we help people?
Yeah, that's
support for sure.
That's the first question. It's not how are we going to make money off of this.
It almost seems like a true nonprofit in the sense of the word, like
you're already not for profit.
An actual.
You mean we're not operating a nonprofit with a for-profit business model? You know what I mean? You know, but to that, we're all for-profit creatives in some capacity. So we understand what for-profit looks like. And I think there's an integrity to that then as well. If we say we're a nonprofit, be a nonprofit. I look out in the community and I go, okay, that's a nonprofit. What are they doing that serves the community? And I think every artist or individual or whatever should be asking the same thing. Oh, you're about to work with a nonprofit in the community or in whatever capacity. Please ask yourself, what are they doing for the community? And if their operations come at the cost to you, then you know, I would question your alignment. Truly, and you know, I don't mean to be like frank, but we live in a space, not just Green Bay, we just live in a space where the whole concept of a nonprofit organization is greatly abused. And that's not even in the arts. You know, and we have organizations that think they need to be the biggest and the greatest, and they need to have the largest building, and they need to be doing the most things, and they, you know, whatever, need to have this incredible following, but their impact is limited by their need to pay salaries, pay overhead for a physical location, you know, like I was saying when we started. We knew where our entire lease's income was coming from before we signed the lease.
Sure. Planning.
So, yeah.
We've got 5 minutes left, so I just put a little chat out to see if anybody else has any questions. I feel like we filled the whole hour.
Yeah, and I, you know, when we talk about the inclusivity thing, just to make a point for anybody that's listening and that's going to watch in the future, EJ Miller Larson, they are our diversity, inclusion, and accessibility board member. And a lot of now, you know, we posted a land acknowledgement today.
The EJ's importance of representation.
And that just
went out
posted.
too, yeah.
Yes.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else we're missing? So you talked
Just
about
Betsy and EJ.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. We should have done that in the beginning with the introduction. It's okay, I didn't think of that. I was like, I have the 3 of you here in front of me.
Yeah.
Let's not leave them out.
Yeah, and you know, going back to when she said we don't really assume formal roles, but like we each have our part, you know, and it's just, you know, I don't want to make us sound like overly blessed or magical unicorns or something like that, but it's,
You totally
you know, it's just always worked. It's just always worked.
So if artists who are watching, because, you know, we've got a few here with us tonight, but I can tell you that usually the replays get a couple thousand views. So if people are watching this and they really want to be involved, they should go to your website, createwithsage.org. They should reach out, follow you on social media for the events you're doing. What do you want from artists?
So we had a similar question asked of us because last week the Green Bay Chamber hosted an event for the Give Big nonprofits, and a lot of that was around how these young professionals could volunteer their time for the nonprofits that were in the room. And I looked at the person that I was there with and I said, well, we don't really use volunteer hours, you know, but to attend and be present. Show up to these events, submit artwork to our shows, come up with really great ideas to utilize this space, have the courage to pitch those ideas our way, you know, and recognize that as an artist, you can be a change maker just like anybody else.
Get involved, show up, participate.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I've seen so much more coming this year. I feel like people are out and about more, people are engaging more.
Yeah,
Nice to see.
yeah, and our space isn't huge, so it fills pretty quickly.
I love this space, it feels great.
Yeah.
Well, if nobody else has any questions, I think we will wrap things up and say goodbye. I'm gonna flip the camera around just so I'm not a talking head. Because I feel like I am when I'm sitting behind the computer screen. Hi, everybody. For those of you who haven't seen me tonight, it did get dark. We're sitting here. I'm going to sign off and we will get the recording posted. Thanks for joining us tonight. I got my sage.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here tonight, and we will say goodbye.